Hello lads, ladies, gents, ladetts, whoever, whatever, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be remastering the second video we did from looking back at the Digimon World series. Being announced at the same time as the first game in the series, Digimon World 2 was made by the exact same team as the first, that being of BEC Studio, who changed their name to BB Studio down the line. The game released on July 27th in the year 2000 for Japan and on May 19th in 2001 for the NA market. Now unfortunately the game didn't seem to get a release for the PAL regions, so compared to the first and third games, I don't have as much nostalgia when it comes to talking about this game. Unfortunately, the second game was nowhere near as successful as its original counterpart. Though not a complete dumpster fire, it's one of those games that didn't go over too well with critics. Digimon World 2 is a complete departure from the original's design. Moving on from being the pet raising sim that the first game was, we actually move into a straight up dungeon crawling RPG, which makes the game a lot more traditional and safe for the market. Also, compared to the first game where we get sucked into the digital world, we now actually play as a character by the name of Akira who actually lives in the digital world. Plot-wise, I think this game is a lot more fleshed out compared to the original, and it's a lot better than the bad guy do bad thing, please stop him. Akira is basically forced to become the tamer and to battle in order to protect his hometown that's begun to get attacked by wild Digimon. Compared to the first game, we're no longer coming from the real world into the Digi world as we actually live in the Digi world. Now personally, I'm not a huge fan of this because I actually like the idea of, being sucked into the digital world rather than being a living part of it. Upon beginning the game, we're given the choice of one of three teams: the Black Sword, the Blue Falcon, and the Gold Hawks. Functionally, all three teams are pretty much the same. They don't really change your playstyle a hell of a lot, plus you can get more Digimon as you go throughout the game. In order to be successful though, you are going to need to make a team that is going to be strong against all three types of Digimon, that being Data, Vaccine, and Virus. Essentially, we get a rock, paper, scissors type mechanic. Now, you would think considering I'm remastering these videos, I would have remembered, but I also forgot in that as well. But this is in the first game and I failed to mention it both in the original and the remaster, so I'm calling myself out here. So as I mentioned, the game has moved to that of a dungeon crawler, which is where things may be a little bit hit or miss depending on what you prefer. Now, as for me, the game grew on me as I played it, however, it's not without its faults. It definitely can be very grind heavy and a little bit slow to kind of figure out what you're meant to be doing, but once you understand what the game wants you to do, all in all, the core gameplay loop is pretty enjoyable, though it can be a little bit tedious. Digimon World 2 can be broken up into two key components, that being its exploration and its battle system. So, starting with exploration, how do we explore? Simple, via tortoise. Digibeetle. It's all a little strange to be honest, but we travel around basically in a giant moving tank and we can customize and upgrade it. The game doesn't do a great job honestly of telling us what we can do with this to begin with, but we will figure it out and it's not that complicated. Thankfully, all we have to do is talk to the NPCs and everything's pretty self-explanatory. The Digibeetle is actually quite interesting as a gameplay mechanic, and this is because we have a limited amount of steps that we can take in each dungeon. Furthermore, we also have a limited amount of HP, so upon either of those numbers hitting 0, we lose. However, if you do wish to leave the dungeon because those numbers are getting dangerously low or your Digimon are in trouble, you can use an item known as the autopilot. It will become your best friend as it will save you from a lot of headaches. You might be wondering though, how do we lose HP if all we're doing is walking around? And that is because there is a variety of traps littered around every domain, and depending on whether you've upgraded your beetle or not, you might not be prepared to deal with some of these. The exploration also suffers from the problem of feeling a little bit slow, and that's because for every turn you make, or single move, so do your opponents. It's not the worst thing however, but it can definitely take up a little bit too much of your time. The only real point of frustration that I had with the exploration is the fact that you can't always avoid fights, and this is because certain Digimon will actually just beeline it for you, so if you're just trying to get to a teleporter, bad luck. So you've got into a fight. What does that actually entail? Well, pretty much what you would expect for any JRPG, though with a slight twist, because instead of just a 1v1, we can actually have up to a 3v3, making battles actually have some tactics required to them, rather than just mash the X button. Another layer this game is added compared to other RPGs, at least of the time, is the fact we can use an item and still attack on the same turn. This is super useful, especially for restoring MP. As you run out of MP, obviously you won't be able to attack anymore, because all attacks require MP. When we're running low, if we don't manage our MP, obviously it's going to cause some issues. Thankfully you have a couple options. You can either use an item, or you can actually guard, which is classified as resting. This will restore a small percentage of your MP. It will also make sure you take less damage on that given turn. Now I mentioned earlier this plays like a traditional RPG, however that's not 100% true. We do have a few different attack types. Now, instead of having a traditional magic attack and physical attack, we actually have 4 different things. We have attack, interrupt, counter-attack, and assist. All 4 of these play a little bit differently, but essentially do the same thing. Attack is just a straight regular attack, which will cost us X amount of MP to use. Interrupt allows us to interrupt an opponent's attack. Counter-attack allows us to counter-attack if we're getting attacked. And assist allows us to assist one of our other Digimon in our team, such as curing them of ailments or healing. Now, in order to get more Digimon in our team, we have to capture them like we would in a game like Pokemon. However, it's not quite a one-to-one like Pokemon, as we'll need to give gifts to these wild Digimon in order to convince them to join us. They have 3 different heart levels, and the higher level heart, the more likely to join you they are. You do want to make sure you have room on your team in order to keep them with you. Not only will you have your 3 that you can have in battle, you can actually have Digimon in reserve that sit out on the Digibeetle. This is great because you can rotate a team through a dungeon and not rely on items as much. In the beginning, we'll only be able to store 1 Digimon in the Digibeetle, but by the end, after we've upgraded the Digibeetle, we can store another 5, giving us a team of 8. Capturing isn't the only way in order to get new Digimon. We can also Digivolve Digimon in order to make them stronger. Now, it's a little bit complicated, at least to my brain, so I'm actually going to link a video below by Devoid, who has an excellent video explaining everything in depth, but I'm going to do my best to summarize. We basically have a couple of ways to go about doing evolutions. Firstly, we have the level caps. So essentially, once we hit a certain level, we can evolve, and this isn't necessarily a set specific level, it's more of a threshold you have to hit. Next, we have DNA Digivolutions. These are a little bit tricky. You need to have a champion level or higher that you can then fuse with another Digimon that is also a champion level or higher. You'll acquire DP points, which then allow you to evolve into other Digimon within the chain. It's important to note though, when you do this, you will reset back to your original rookie form. You'll also reset back to level 1. Thankfully, grinding by the time you get to this point is pretty easy, and you can level up really quick. Now, we're going to get into some spoiler warnings here because we're going to start talking about the story and plot. This isn't going to be some full in-depth analysis of the story or plot. I'm not that kind of guy, but I do think it's worth talking about, especially given how much it evolves from the first game. Now, compared to the first game, the villains in this game are actually around a lot more, and it's more than just being Digimon that are wild, that are aggressive and attacking. We find out that there is a group called the Blood Knights that are behind this, essentially a 4th team per se. They're basically an army that used to be former guards within the city that you lived in. Like any army though, we do have a command structure. We eventually find, after many battles, that they have a mastermind who is named Crimson. He originally respected the guard tower of the digital city, but after many discoveries after his missions, he found an unknown life form. This ends up being the Overlord Gaia. We also find out Gaia is actually in control of Crimson, thus making Gaia the overlord, pun intended, of this world, thus leading to the fight against Overlord Gaia as the final boss battle. After defeating Gaia, you'll find out that you've actually managed to save everyone, obviously. However, the interesting thing is now you are free to leave the digital world, thus actually negating my complaint from earlier. This was a cool little twist, and I didn't actually see this coming. Now, in terms of what's left in the post-game, you basically get one more domain you can complete, which is called the Terra Domain. It's 100 floors long, and it's like every other domain. You can use it to capture and train any other Digimon for completion's sake. I'm not really doing the story justice, but as I said, I'm not great at really doing story analysis. I recommend playing it for yourself, and that's basically how I feel about this game. I think it does a lot of great improvements in terms of general gameplay to that of the first, with some minor kind of setbacks. At first, I wasn't really sold on the dungeon crawler style of game. However, the more I played, the more I got hooked. So if you're looking for an RPG worth picking up and you feel like playing a retro game, I actually really do recommend this. And given its relatively low sales, I think it's fair to say this game is a rare and underappreciated gem. So do check it out. And with that, lads, ladies, gents, ladetts, whoever, whatever, it brings us to the end of another video. I hope you enjoyed this remaster of our second video from the Digimon World series. We will eventually do the third. It will not be too far off, so I hope you're looking forward to it, and I will see you guys there. If you like the video, please consider hitting the like button. If you want to go a little bit further, you can hit that subscribe button. If you want to go that extra mile, you can support me on Ko-fi for just $1 a month, like these lovely people here. And with that said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay safe out there. Bye.